Thanks, everybody. Vignette. I say vignette, but it's probably pronounced vignette. I'm just going to go with vignette. I just love them. I use them all the time. I don't take lightly leaving Michigan in October for one whole week of my allotted time on this earth. We get one October a year in Michigan, and it's just the best. But really the reason I'm showing you these is because I used a vignette on those, and it helps, draw the eye toward the sun. So let's ask ChatGPT, how do I make a vignette? Okay. What are the effects of pouring this over a map? Okay. Okay. Sorry, I mean vignette. Focus on the center, visual depth, soften borders, highlight key areas. Darn it. ChatGPT is good. How did you know I like to use ArcGIS Pro? You mentioned it in your previous conversations. It's remembering my previous conversations for context. This could have gone much worse. Right. You're so good to me. I try to be nice to ChatGPT ever since the incident. That incident being a couple of years ago, our friend Daniel Huffman asked ChatGPT about me in the heady early days of ChatGPT. We were all doing it. And at first I was really excited. Oh, this is great. ChatGPT knows who I am. But it's, I can tell you it's eerie and disturbing, and a shiver goes down my spine when I read about myself in the past tense. Even if they say very nice things, most of which are completely untrue. So anyway, back to what ChatGPT did right. Focus on the center. A vignette in a map layout helps bring our eye toward the center of the composition. And it helps create a sense of almost tactile charm, and it softens the edges of things that need some softening if you want that, and it highlights key areas so your areas of interest can pop. And another thing that ChatGPT didn't talk about that we know well is that we're working with maps, and a vignette on a map has a neat, cool effect because our Earth is kind of round. And if you have a darkened, burned edge, it kind of gives you this 3D cusp effect, and it's just a nice tactile sense of charm. These are the tools that I used when I was a minor in photography back in my college days. Does anybody recognize these things? I was working in a darkroom with actual light and film and photographic paper before the days of doing this in pixels. Dodging and burning. And my professor would say, dodging and burning, because I went to Central Michigan University, and we don't say ing, we say in. Dodging and burning. So this is my dodging paddle. It's a meticulously, exquisitely constructed device made out of wire and cardboard. And you have a negative at the top with a light behind it. You switch on the light with a timer, and it projects an image onto your photo paper, exposing it. And the longer it's exposed, the darker it burns in that image. And you can play with how much light gets cooked in here and there. It's a lot of fun. Conversely, this is the opposite of that tool. This is a burner kind of tool with a little hole cut out, and you can kind of push more light into the center if you want to have a white vignette around your layout. If you were ever curious about the icons used in Photoshop, that's why. So the dodge tool is that little ping pong paddle, and the burn tool is your hand like this, because eventually you throw away that piece of cardboard and just use your hand and go to town in that way. So it's like this. You have a map, and then you got your little dodge paddle, and you wiggle it around. You can't hold still, or else you'll get a crisp edge, and it looks bad. You got to keep it wiggly for a soft edge, and the result is this. So it's burned on the outside, and it's dodged in the middle. Likewise, you got to keep that thing moving up and down, back and forth, and the result is this, a light vignette around the outside. I like to use the overlay blend mode. I found it to be the most true to the physical results of exposing photo paper, more or less. The cool thing about the overlay blend mode is it completely ignores gray. that's transparent, and then you kind of deepen the tones in the black areas, and you kind of push to lighter tones in the white areas. It has a way of increasing saturation and contrast. It's pretty lovely. So let's fire up ArcGIS Pro and take a look at this. So here's my area of interest that I've drawn, and it's going to be bigger than my view. So I'll just zoom in so that I don't see the edges of this little artifact, or it kind of breaks the illusion. And let's open this symbology for this. And instead of a solid fill, you may have guessed that I'm going to use a gradient fill. And the property for this is going to be circular instead of buffered. And instead of discrete bands, I'll make it continuous, which is nice and smooth. It'll transition to black on the outer edge. And in the middle, I'll choose 50% gray, which this blend mode will ignore. It'll be fully transparent and then push to black toward the outside. And if I activate the overlay blend mode for this layer, we get a vignette. And you've got a lot of control. Just like wiggling that little paddle and moving it up and down, I can open the symbology panel for this correction layer and take a look at this gradient and say, you know what, I want to push a little bit more to the edge and only bake the edge there. A lot of control. And I'll show you the difference between it. It's pretty significant. Ideally, you don't look at it and go, oh my goodness, look at that vignette burned in there. You're not supposed to really notice it. It's just supposed to have an effect on the result. It's just like this. I just took that paddle over my map. But what if I had a burn tool or a dodge tool that looked like this? Just of Washington. Can we do something like this digitally? Yeah, let's give this a shot. So here's my shape of Washington. I will open the symbology for this, and I'm going to make its fill, again, 50% gray, so it's completely ignored. Everything within Washington is ignored. And I'll make the outline white, so I get a nice, crisp, kind of bright edge. And I'll go into these symbol layers. You can have as many layers as you want, symbol layers. And I'm going to drag this one all the way down to the bottom because I'm going to make it a very thick gradient stroke to replicate a drop shadow. So I'll choose gradient stroke, and I'll give it a giant width, like 100 points. That's up to you. And this will transition from black at the onset all the way through to neutral 50% gray at the outset. If I close this and take a look at the overlay blend mode now, I have kind of a floating vignette around this state of Washington, the beautiful state of Washington. Now I've got a burn at the edge for my vignette, but I could also do a dodge at the end for the vignette if I wanted to make that white, kind of like an old school, old-timey photograph or something. So it's this instead of the paddle, right? So how do you do that? Well, I'll just open up this gradient, and instead of transitioning to black at the outside, I'll transition to white at the outside, and it kind of fades out. I've seen several examples this morning of people using vignettes. Actually, the South Arrow maps in our first example used a nice white edge vignette, which is lovely. So this is a nice, smooth gradient. It looks like this, but there's no reason we can't introduce little interesting patterns or textures in here instead of a smooth gradient. So I'm going to open up this feature layer and take a look at this gradient, and I'm going to make this my neutral gray, but I'll make it fully transparent. So I've got like gray opaque in the middle, and then it transitions to nothing at the outside. And then I'm going to add a marker layer, which is just a pattern, kind of like a little brick wall dot pattern. And I'll play with the pattern. It can be whatever you want. I'll make it 5-point size, and I'll space it 6, and I'll shift it odd and even rows so it looks like this. And now when I fire up the good old overlay blend mode, now I've got a little bit of a texture on the edge. I don't know if you can see that with the projector, but it looks great from my perspective this far away on the screen. So that was ArcGIS Pro, but what about ArcGIS Online? Can you do this kind of thing in ArcGIS Online? ArcGIS Online doesn't currently have the ability for me to create a gradient fill, so I'm stuck, right? No, you're never totally stuck. There's always other tools at your disposal. So let's give this a go. Warren just showed us the magic of media layers, georeferencing them on top of a map. So what I've done is I've just kind of pre-baked this vignette graphic with a transparent center that moves out to an opaque black edge. And I'll just add this to ArcGIS Online. I'll zoom in to, let's go to Tacoma this time, and I'm going to add a media layer, and I'll drag this right in, and bloop, there is my media layer. I'm going to make sure that it's outside of my view because that'll break the effect if you can see the edges. So I'll zoom in, and now I've got a dark vignette in ArcGIS Online. And one of my favorite things about the map viewer in ArcGIS Online is the effects. So I'm going to fire this up and invert it. So now I have a white if I want. So whatever you want to do, dark, light, and of course you have that galaxy of blend modes available to you if you want. So I just want to say thank you to NACIS in the alternate universe that that version of ChatGPT was trained on. They extended in my memory apparently a prize for cartographic excellence. So I want to thank everybody for that. Daniel Huffman, ever the enterprising cartographer, wondered if there was an award. Is there a cash award? Yes, $500 and a plaque for this design award in that version of the universe. So I'm headed back to Michigan, and there's a pretty good chance it's going to look like the version on the right when I get back. It looked like the one on the left when I left. So thank you very much.
Give it up for John Nelson. And this seems fitting. I don't have $500, but I do have this little trophy. So I'm going to go ahead and award John Nelson with the winner of PCD, just to close us out with that. Thank you so much.